There is a face you put on before you open the front door. You may not even notice you do it anymore. It happens on its own, somewhere between the bedroom and the car, between the last private moment and the first person who might look at you. Your shoulders settle. Your expression arranges itself. Your voice finds the warm, steady note that people have come to expect from you. By the time anyone sees you, the face is on, and it is a good face. It smiles at the right moments. It asks about other people. It says, "I'm doing well, thanks, how about you?" And it means it, or it sounds like it means it, which for most purposes is the same thing. That face has served you well. People trust it. People lean on it. And that is exactly the problem, because underneath it, some days, is a person who is so tired they can barely stand, and no one, not one single person, has any idea. Today I want to talk about that face. Not the person who has fallen apart, though we will honor them too. I want to talk about the person who has not fallen apart, who cannot afford to, who has become an expert at seeming fine. The person whose depression is invisible precisely because they are so good at hiding it. The mask. And if you are the one wearing it, I want you to hear the most important sentence in this whole video, and I want you to hear it now, at the very beginning, before we go any further. The mask does not mean you are lying. It means you have been carrying something heavy, alone, for a very long time. And you were never meant to. Stay with me. Let's take the mask seriously, because almost no one does. Let me start by describing the mask itself, because most people have never had it named for them. When we think of depression, we think of the absence of a mask. We picture someone who has stopped hiding anything because they no longer have the strength to hide. Someone who cannot get out of bed. Someone who has stopped showering, stopped working, stopped answering the phone. Their pain is written on the outside where anyone can read it. And that is real. That kind of depression is serious, and the people living it deserve every bit of care and patience we can find. But that image, the collapse, the visible fall, has quietly taught the rest of us something false. It taught us that depression has to look like that. It taught us that if you are still standing, still working, still showing up with a clean shirt and a kind word, then whatever is happening inside you cannot be depression. It must be something smaller. Stress. A rough patch. Getting older. Being dramatic. Not being grateful enough. And so millions of people carry the real thing for years and never once call it by its name because they do not match the picture. Clinicians have several terms for what I am describing. Some call it high-functioning depression. In the older diagnostic language, it overlaps with dysthymia, and today it often sits under a label called persistent depressive disorder. But the name that captures it best, the one people actually feel, is smiling depression. And the plain language heart of it is this. Masking depression is when the symptoms of depression are fully present and real, but your ability to function stays mostly intact. You keep going to work. You keep paying the bills. You keep laughing at the joke, keep hosting the dinner, keep being the strong one. On the surface, the machine runs beautifully. Underneath, the person running the machine is exhausted, hollow, and quietly certain that this flat gray feeling is just what life is now. This is not the depression of collapse. It is the depression of performance. And that word, performance, is the key to the whole thing, because a performance requires an audience, and it requires that the audience never sees behind the curtain. The mask is not an accident. It is a skill. And like any skill practiced for years, it becomes so smooth, so automatic, that even the person performing forgets they are doing it. Here is what makes it so dangerous. The very thing that hides the pain, the functioning, is the thing the world rewards. When you carry an invisible weight and still deliver, still smile, still hold everyone else together, people look at you and say, "I don't know how you do it. You handle everything so well." And you hear that. And somewhere inside, the lesson lands like a lock clicking shut. If this is what people admire me for, then I can never, ever put it down. So let me be very clear about one thing before we go deeper, because everything else rests on it. Functioning is not the same as being okay. Let me say that again, slowly, because our whole culture gets it backwards. Functioning is not proof that a person is fine. A woman can run a household of 6 and cry in the pantry with the door closed. A man can close the biggest deal of his career and feel absolutely nothing but a low hum of dread. A person can be, by every measure anyone can see, successful, admired, put together, and feel dead on the inside. The competence is not evidence that they are well. Sometimes the competence is the mask itself, polished to a shine so bright that no one thinks to look behind it. Now let's do something that almost no video about depression bothers to do. Let's look at the mask up close. Let's take it apart, layer by layer, so that if you are wearing one, you finally see it clearly, and if someone you love is wearing one, you learn to recognize it. The first layer of the mask is the morning brace. Most people who mask depression will tell you, if they ever tell anyone, that the hardest moment of the day is the first one. Before the alarm, before the coffee, there is a moment lying in bed where the whole day arrives at once, and it does not feel like a day to be lived. It feels like a weight to be lifted, a distance to be crossed, a performance to be given. There is no single thing wrong. That is almost the cruelest part. If something were wrong, at least it would explain the heaviness. But nothing is wrong, and the heaviness is there anyway, sitting on the chest, and so on top of the weight comes the second weight, the guilt. What right do I have to feel this way? So they lie there for an extra minute, bracing, and then they get up, because getting up is what they do, and the first layer of the mask goes on with the bathrobe. The second layer is the social face. This is the one everyone knows. The warm greeting. The remembered birthday. The genuine-sounding question about your knee, your kids, your trip. And here is the thing that will surprise you. It is not fake. The person masking depression usually is warm. They usually do care about your knee. The mask is not a lie about who they are. It is a lie about how they are. They perform care for others fluently because caring for others is real, and it is one of the few things that still feels like it matters. But every ounce of energy that goes into your birthday is an ounce they did not have to spare, and no one sees the cost, because the gift arrives on time and beautifully wrapped. The third layer is the deflection. Watch a person who masks depression in a real conversation, and you will see it if you know to look. Every question that turns toward them gets gently, smoothly turned back around. How are you? Oh, you know me, can't complain, but tell me about you. What's going on with your health? Enough about me. How did the appointment go? They are experts at the pivot. They can steer an entire evening away from themselves without anyone noticing because they do it with such warmth that it feels like generosity, and it partly is. But it is also a wall, built one deflection at a time, and the person behind it gets lonelier with every conversation they successfully survive. The fourth layer is achievement, and this one is sneaky because the world calls it a virtue. For a lot of people who mask, the mask is not just a smile. It is a resume. As long as I am producing, hitting the next target, being useful, staying busy, I don't have to feel what is underneath, and no one gets close enough to ask. Productivity becomes a painkiller. The person is not running toward their goals so much as running away from the silence that would arrive if they ever stopped. And it works. It genuinely works, right up until it doesn't. Until the body gives out. Until the goals run dry. Until a quiet Sunday afternoon leaves too much stillness in the room and everything they have been outrunning finally sits down beside them. Put those layers together, the morning brace, the warm social face, the endless deflection, the armor of achievement, and you get a person who looks, from every angle anyone is allowed to see, like they are thriving. And that is the tragedy in one sentence. The better the mask, the more alone the person behind it. Because a mask that good does not just hide the pain from other people. Over time it starts to hide the pain from the person wearing it too. Let me walk you through an ordinary day, because I think seeing it hour by hour will land in a way that a list of symptoms never can. If this is you, you may recognize your own life described from the outside for the first time. If it is someone you love, this is the day they are living while you see only the good moments. Morning. The brace, then the rising, then the coffee, then the face. On the drive to work or on the walk to the kitchen if the work is at home, there might be a strange flat moment at a red light or at the sink where they catch their own reflection and feel a distance from it, like watching a stranger who happens to be them. Then the light turns green. The day begins. Midday. They are good at their work, so the work gets done. Colleagues, family, clients, all get the version of them that shows up, capable and warm. But everything costs more than it should. Answering an email feels like lifting something. Deciding what to have for lunch feels like a problem to be solved rather than a small pleasure. They push through because pushing through is the one thing they always know how to do. And somewhere in the afternoon, maybe, there is a bathroom or a parked car or a walk taken alone where the face comes off for 90 seconds and the tiredness that has no name floods in, and then the 90 seconds end and the face goes back on. Evening. This is often the hardest stretch because evening is when other people relax and the masker cannot. Dinner, family, the phone, the small talk. They are present. They laugh. They ask the questions. And they feel, at their own table, surrounded by people they genuinely love, a loneliness so complete it frightens them, because how can you be this alone in a room full of people who care about you? The answer is quiet, and it is devastating. They love the version of me they can see. And I have made very sure that is the only version there is. Night. The house goes quiet. The mask, finally, can come off, and here is the strange thing. After a whole day of holding it up, taking it off does not always feel like relief. Sometimes it feels like nothing. Sometimes it feels like emptiness rushing in to fill the space the effort used to occupy. They lie there, tired in a way that sleep will not fix, and the last thought before sleep, on the bad nights, is some version of, I don't know how long I can keep doing this. And then morning comes, and the brace, and the coffee, and the face, and it begins again. Now let's name the actual symptoms living inside that day, because depression is an abstract word and this thing lives in specifics. Slow down here. This is the part where people finally hear their own inside described out loud. The first is a low, gray flatness. Not dramatic sadness. Flatness. The things that used to bring joy now bring a muffled, that was nice, I suppose. You take the trip. You see the grandchildren. You finish the thing you worked a whole year toward. And where the feeling should be, there is a quiet nothing, and you find yourself performing the right reaction, the smile, the happy sound, while some part of you stands back and feels the absence of it. Doctors call this anhedonia, the loss of pleasure. People living it say it more simply. I'm just going through the motions. The second is exhaustion that sleep does not touch. This is not ordinary tiredness. You can sleep a full night and wake as though you spent it running. The tank sits near empty no matter what you do, and you cannot explain it because on paper you are not doing anything hard enough to justify feeling this depleted. That unexplained emptiness of energy is not laziness, and it is not weakness. It is one of the most common and most ignored signals of what we are talking about. The third is the voice. There is a running commentary in the background of the mind, and it is not kind. You should be doing more. You're falling behind. Other people have real problems. What is wrong with you? It runs so constantly that most people stop noticing it is even there. It just becomes the weather inside their head. And because it uses their own voice, they believe it. They think it is simply the truth about themselves. It is not the truth. It is a symptom. That cruel voice is not your honest self-assessment. It is the illness talking, and it lies. The fourth is the gap, and this is the true signature of masking depression. On the outside, competent, warm, together. On the inside, hollow. And the gap between those two things is where the loneliness lives. When you are this good at seeming fine, being truly seen becomes almost impossible because everyone reacts to the mask. The mask gets the compliments, the trust, the invitations. And the real person behind it gets a little lonelier every time because every warm interaction quietly confirms the same fear. Nobody actually knows me. They know the one I perform. The fifth is guilt about all of it. Your life looks good. You have a home, food, maybe people who love you. You know others have far less. So on top of the emptiness, you feel guilty for the emptiness, and that guilt becomes one more reason to keep the mask on. I have no right to feel this way turns, very fast, into so I had better make sure no one ever sees that I do. And there is a sixth that often hides in men and in older people especially, and it fools everyone, including doctors. It is irritability. Masking depression does not always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like a short fuse, a new impatience, a person who is always easygoing suddenly snapping over small things, then hating themselves for it afterward. When the effort of holding the mask up all day drains the tank, There is nothing left to absorb the ordinary friction of life, and it comes out sideways as anger. If someone you love has gotten unexpectedly irritable in their later years, before you decide they are just getting difficult, consider that they might be exhausted from carrying something they have never told you about. Put those six together: the flatness, the exhaustion, the cruel voice, the gap, the guilt, and the irritability, and you have a life that works on paper and aches in private, held together with willpower and habit, running on fumes, smiling the whole way down. Here is a question worth sitting with. Why do some people become the ones who mask? Because not everyone does. And the answer surprises people, because masking depression does not tend to strike those who never learn to cope. It tends to strike the ones who learn to cope too well. Think about who becomes the reliable one. Usually it is a person who, somewhere early in life, learned that their own feelings were not the priority. Maybe they grew up in a home where a parent was sick or angry or absent, and being no trouble was how they earned safety. Maybe they were the oldest, the one who looked after the younger ones. Maybe they were simply praised, over and over, for being strong, for being mature, for handling things so well for their age. A child learns fast. And the lesson many of these children absorbed, down to the bone, was this: I am loved for what I hold together, not for what I feel. My job is to be fine, so that the people around me do not have to worry about me. That child grows into an adult who is genuinely excellent at functioning and genuinely terrible at asking for help. They have spent decades being the strong one. Strength is not just something they do. It has become who they are, their value, their role in every relationship they have. And you cannot easily admit you are drowning when not drowning is the thing you believe you exist to do. There is a cruel arithmetic to it. The better you are at carrying things, the more things people hand you. The reliable get more responsibility, not less. The competent get more expected of them, not less. So the very people who most need someone to say, "Here, let me take that from you," are the people no one ever thinks to offer it to, because they make it all look so easy. The mask earns them more weight, and the extra weight makes them need the mask more, and around it goes. And then there is perfectionism, which is masking depression's closest cousin. For many people, the mask is held up by a belief that they must not make mistakes, must not disappoint, must not be a burden, must not be seen struggling. Perfectionism looks like high standards from the outside. From the inside, it often feels like a low, constant fear and a voice that is never, ever satisfied no matter what you achieve. If that is you, understand that the exhaustion you feel is not from the work. It is from the fear underneath the work, the fear of what people would think if the mask ever slipped. If any of this is landing close to home, the reliable one, the strong one, the perfectionist, the one who copes, I want you to hear this clearly. Being strong for everyone else your whole life is not a flaw. It is often a beautiful thing, and the people around you are lucky to have had it. But it was never meant to cost you yourself. And the fact that you are good at carrying pain does not mean you are ever supposed to carry it alone. Now I want to bring this home to something specific, because this channel is about aging well, about the second half of life, about the years that are supposed to be the reward for all that carrying. And masking depression has a particular and cruel relationship with getting older that almost no one warns you about. Here is the setup. For decades, a person's sense of worth is built into their roles. You are a parent raising children. You are a professional with a title and a team who need you. You are the one the whole family organizes itself around. Your days have shape because other people need things from you, and that need gives your life a clear structure and a clear value, and it also, quietly, gives the mask its job. As long as people need you, you have a reason to keep it on, and holding it up feels like love, feels like duty, feels like purpose. And then, one season at a time, the roles begin to change. The children grow up and build lives of their own, and the house goes quiet, the good quiet you worked so hard for, and also a quiet that echoes in a way you did not expect. The career ends, sometimes on your terms and sometimes not, and the identity you spent 40 years building gets handed back to you with a card and a cake and a Monday morning where, suddenly, no one anywhere needs you to show up. Friends move, or fall ill, or pass away, and the circle that took a lifetime to build starts to thin. The body changes. Things that were effortless become effortful. The face in the mirror belongs to someone older than the person you still feel like inside. None of these are mental illness. Every one of them is simply life. But for a person who built their entire worth on being useful and being needed and holding it all together, these transitions land like a series of quiet earthquakes. Because if I mattered because I was needed, then what am I now that the need has moved on? And here is the part that hides it. The mask does not come off when the roles end. It just loses its audience. The person keeps performing fine out of pure habit for a smaller and smaller crowd, and sometimes for no one at all except the mirror. And it gets more hidden still, because in later life the symptoms of depression put on a costume. An older adult going through this rarely says, "I think I am depressed." Instead they say, "I'm just slowing down. I'm tired lately. My sleep isn't what it used to be. I don't have much of an appetite anymore. I'm just getting old." The symptoms of depression in later life, low energy, poor sleep, aches, loss of interest, wear the exact clothing of ordinary aging. And we have all been taught to expect those things from getting older, so when real, treatable depression shows up wearing that costume, everyone waves it through. Family waves it through. Sometimes doctors wave it through. And the person themselves waves it through, because they have been told their whole life that this is just what the later years feel like. So let me say this as plainly as I can, because it may be the most important practical thing in this entire video. Feeling empty, hopeless, and joyless is not a normal or required part of getting older. Aging is not supposed to mean the color quietly draining out of everything. A great deal of what gets shrugged off as just old age is treatable depression hiding in plain sight, wearing the mask of time. And when we call it aging instead of calling it what it is, we take away the one thing that person most needed, which is the chance to get help while help can still give them years of real, felt, colored life. There is grief in aging, real grief, for what is lost and who is gone, and grief is not a disorder. But grief moves. It comes in waves, it changes, and slowly it lets the light back in. When the flatness does not move, when it settles in and stays for weeks and months and colors everything gray, that is not just grief anymore. That is something that deserves attention and care. And attention and care can genuinely help at 70 and at 80 just as much as at 40. Now let's talk honestly about what the mask costs, because it is not free. Nothing carried this long is ever free. The first cost is physical, and for a channel about longevity, this is not a footnote. Depression does not live only in the mind. It lives in the body. Chronic low-grade depression keeps your stress system switched on, low but constant, like an engine that never fully idles down. Over years, that steady strain takes a real toll. It shows up in sleep that never quite restores you. It shows up in inflammation, in blood pressure, in a heart working under a load no scan will fully explain. There is a physical price for being braced all the time, day after day, year after year, and eventually the body sends the invoice. Untreated chronic depression is quietly one of the things that shortens the healthy years of a life. So if you care about living long and living well, and that is why you are here, then caring for the thing behind the mask is not soft or optional. It is central. The second cost is relational, and it aches with irony. The mask exists to protect your relationships. You wear it so you do not burden anyone, so people can rely on you, so you never bring anyone down. But the mask is also the thing keeping everyone at arm's length. No one can truly love the part of you that you never let them see. So you can be surrounded by people who care about you and still feel profoundly, achingly alone, because they are loving the performance, and the real you is standing just behind it, watching, unmet, unheld. The very shield you built to keep your relationships safe is the thing keeping them shallow. And the cruelest turn of all is that the longer you wear it, the harder it becomes to take off, because you fear that the people who love the mask will not know what to do with the face. The third cost is the slow erosion of your own self. When you spend years overriding what you feel, pushing it down, powering through, presenting fine, you gradually lose contact with yourself. You stop being able to answer the simplest questions. What do I actually want? What do I enjoy? What do I need right now in this moment? The signal goes quiet because you ignored it for so long that it finally stopped bothering to speak. And that is a particular and lonely kind of loss. Becoming a stranger to yourself, so busy performing a person that you forgot how to be one. And there is a fourth cost, the one we most need to say out loud and plainly. A person who masks depression can reach a very dark place while looking completely fine from the outside. This is the specific danger of an invisible illness. Because they function, no one worries. Because no one worries, no one checks in. And the person themselves often believes their pain does not even qualify as real pain, so they do not reach out either. That gap between how much someone is suffering and how much anyone around them knows can grow wide and silent and very dangerous. So if you take nothing else from this section, take this. The fact that someone looks fine tells you nothing at all about how they are actually doing. And if you are that someone, please hear this. Your pain counts even while you are still functioning. You do not have to fall apart to deserve help. You are allowed to reach for it right now, exactly as you are, mask and all. And I need to pause here and be direct, because it matters more than anything else in this video. If you are ever in a place where you are thinking about ending your life, or the pain feels like more than you can hold, please treat that as the emergency it truly is. Reach out to a crisis line in your country. Go to your nearest emergency room. Or simply tell one person, today, out loud. You matter infinitely more than the mask, and the world is not better off with your performance and without you. It needs the real you still here. Now, let's make this practical and personal. How do you know whether what I am describing is actually you, and not just a normal hard stretch? Everyone has bad weeks. The difference is in the pattern and the persistence. So here are some questions I would gently ask you to sit with. Not to diagnose yourself, that is what a professional is for, but to get honest with yourself, maybe for the first time in years. Ask yourself, when did I last feel genuine joy? Not a performance of it, not that was nice, but the real thing, all the way through, the kind that catches you by surprise. If you have to reach back months or years, that is worth noticing. Ask yourself, am I tired in a way that rest does not fix? If you sleep and still wake depleted, day after day after day, that is not just a busy season. That is the body trying to tell you something you have been too busy to hear. Ask yourself, how do I talk to myself when no one is around? If the inner voice is relentlessly critical, if it says things you would never let another living person say to someone you love, pay attention to that. You would step in and defend anyone else spoken to that way. You deserve the same defense. Ask yourself, is there a gap between how I seem and how I feel? If people think you are doing great and you know, privately, that you are empty or bracing or just going through the motions, then that gap is the clearest fingerprint of what we are talking about. Ask yourself, how long has this been going on? A bad week is human. But if you look back and realize this gray flatness has quietly been the baseline for months, if you cannot remember the last time it truly lifted, then this is not a passing mood. It is a state you have been living inside, and states like this respond to help. And one more, the quietest and the most important. Have I convinced myself that I do not have the right to feel this way? Because that belief, other people have it worse, I should be grateful, I have no real reason to feel like this, is not humility. It is the lock on the door. Your pain is not a competition. It does not have to be measured against anyone else's to be allowed. It is yours, it is real, and it counts. If several of those landed, I want to be careful and clear. I am not diagnosing you, and no video can. But it may be time to talk to someone who can. And that is not weakness. That is the exact same confidence you have applied to everything else in your life, finally, and at long last, pointed at yourself. So where does the road out actually begin? If this is you, or someone you love, what genuinely helps? Not cliches. Real things. Let's walk through them. The first and the hardest, and by far the most important. Let one person in. Not everyone. One. The entire architecture of masking depression is built on being unseen, so the single most powerful crack you can make in that wall is to let one trusted person see the real thing. A friend, a partner, a sibling, an old colleague, a doctor. You do not have to explain it perfectly. You do not have to have the right words. You can start with one clumsy, honest sentence. I have been putting on a good face for a long time, but the truth is I have been really struggling, and I have never said that out loud to anyone. That one sentence, spoken to one safe person, breaks the spell that the whole illness depends on. It is terrifying. I will not pretend it is not. It is also the beginning of everything. Second, treat it as real and get a real assessment. If you had chest pain for 3 months, you would not keep telling yourself to try harder. You would see a doctor. Persistent depression deserves exactly that seriousness. Talk to your physician or a mental health professional. This kind of depression, the long, low, chronic, well-hidden kind, actually responds well to treatment. Talk therapy genuinely helps, especially the approaches that work on that cruel inner voice and the old beliefs underneath it, the ones a frightened child absorbed decades ago. For some people, medication makes a real and appropriate difference, and that is a medical decision to make with a professional, free of shame. The point is not which path you take. The point is that paths exist, that they work, and that you do not have to keep white-knuckling this alone in the dark. Third, start turning this signal back up. Remember how years of overriding your feelings turned the volume down on what you want and need, until you could barely hear yourself? You turn it back up slowly, with small honest questions asked many times a day. What do I actually feel right now? What do I need in this moment? What would real rest, not the performance of rest, actually look like today? At first you may get only static, no answer at all. That is normal. That is the signal learning to trust that you are finally listening. Keep asking gently. It comes back. Fourth, challenge the belief that your worth is your usefulness. This is the deep root, and it matters more and more as you age and the roles fall away. You were taught somewhere, by someone, probably long ago, that you are valuable because of what you do for others, what you produce, what you hold together. I want to offer you a different idea, and I want you to actually try it on rather than nodding and moving past it. You have worth simply because you exist. Not because of what you carry. Not because of how needed you are. Just because you are here, a whole human being, the same as any other. If that sounds naive, notice how genuinely hard it is to believe it about yourself. That difficulty is not proof it is false. It is the exact shape of the wound we have been talking about this whole time. And wounds can heal. Fifth, move the body gently and get into the light and the world. I am not going to insult you by pretending a walk cures depression. It does not, and anyone who tells you it does is selling something. But the body and the mind are one system, not two. Regular gentle movement, real sunlight on your face, sleep you protect on purpose, and staying connected to other people even when every instinct in you wants to withdraw. These are not the whole answer, but they are real support. And they make every other part of the work more possible. And here is the part that matters especially for us in the second half of life. These small daily inputs matter more as we age, not less. The walk, the light, the phone call to a friend, they are not small. They are medicine you can give yourself for free every single day. And sixth, for the long road ahead. Build a life with meaning that does not depend only on being needed. This is the deep work of the second half of life, and it is genuinely, quietly hopeful. When the old roles fade, the job, the daily parenting, the central usefulness, they leave behind room. Real room. Room to discover what lights you up for its own sake, not because anyone needs it from you, but simply because it is yours. A craft. A cause. A friendship tended slowly and without agenda. A faith. A garden. Learning at 70 the thing you were told at 50 you were too old to start. Purpose in later life does not have to be inherited from a role that is ending. It can be chosen, fresh, and it can turn out to be the most honest purpose you have ever had, because for the first time in your life it is not about anyone else's need. It is about you being fully, quietly, unmistakably alive. And a person who is truly alive in that way does not need the mask, because there is nothing left to hide. Now, maybe you have been listening to all of this thinking not about yourself, but about someone else. The friend who is always a little too fine. The parent who says they are just tired. The spouse who does everything right and yet somehow feels 1,000 miles away, even sitting right beside you. Let me tell you how to help them, because it is genuinely easy to get this wrong with the very best of intentions. First, understand what you are up against. They are very, very good at seeming okay. It is a skill they have practiced for decades. So do not wait for the obvious signs, because there will not be any. Instead, watch for the gap and watch for the small changes. The friend who is withdrawing just slightly. The joy that seems a little performed. The person who asks warmly about everyone else and quietly deflects every single question about themselves. The one who is always fine, a touch too quickly, a touch too smoothly every time. Second, when you reach out, do not ask, "Are you okay?" Because they will say yes on reflex every time. "Are you okay?" is the mask's favorite question because it accepts a one-word answer and lets everyone off the hook. Instead, be specific and be warm and ask something that the automatic yes cannot answer. "I have noticed you seem really tired lately, and I have been thinking about you. How are you really doing?" And I mean the long version, not the short one. Or, even simpler, and this one slips past the mask more reliably than almost anything else. You are always the one taking care of everyone else. Who takes care of you? Third, make it safe by making it small and steady, and by not trying to fix them. You cannot fix them, and trying to will only make them retreat behind the mask, because being a problem to be solved is the last thing a person like this can bear. What you can do, and it is more powerful than any solution, is be a safe place more than once. The reliable ones have spent their whole lives being the strong one. They will not collapse gratefully into help the first time it is offered. Do not take that as rejection. Keep showing up. Keep the door open without shoving them through it. Let them know, in your words and in your patience, that you can handle the real version, that they do not have to perform for you, that you are not going anywhere. And fourth, gently take the shame out of the room. Do not say you need therapy, because to a person like this it can land as an accusation, as proof that they have finally failed at the one thing they were for. Say something more like this. "You have carried so much for so long. It would make all the sense in the world to have someone in your corner now. There is no shame in it. Honestly, I would want it too." For someone who believes their entire value is holding it together, permission to set it down has to come from outside, and it has to come more than once, gently, patiently, before they can begin to believe it is really allowed. Let's come back to where we started. That face. The one you put on before you open the door. The one that shows up and carries everything and asks about everyone else and smiles. I want to speak now to the person behind it directly. And if that person is you, I want you to slow down and take this in, because I think some part of you has been waiting a very long time to hear it, longer than you would admit. You have carried so much for so long, so well, that almost no one ever noticed how heavy it was. And that is not because they do not care about you. It is because you got so good at making it look easy that you erased the evidence with your own two hands. You hid it so that no one would worry. And it worked. That is the heartbreak of it. It worked. And somewhere along the way, "I can handle it quietly" became "I have to handle it alone," and you stopped being able to tell the difference between the two. But they were never the same thing. Being strong is not the same as being well. And you are allowed to be well. Not just functioning. Not just coping. Not just getting through another day with the mask on straight and the face arranged and the voice steady. Actually well. Actually here. Actually known by someone, all the way down, mask off, for the first time in longer than you can remember. You do not have to fall apart to deserve care. You do not have to earn rest by collapsing first. You do not have to justify your pain by measuring it against someone else's and finding it big enough. And you certainly do not have to keep proving your worth by how much you can carry. Not now. Not at this stage of your life. Not ever again. The heaviness you have been holding was never a sign that something is wrong with you. It was only ever a sign that you have been holding it alone. And that one thing, the alone part, the only part that ever really needed fixing, can begin to change starting with a single honest sentence said to one safe person on one ordinary day. It could be today. It could be this week. It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be true. Whatever season of life you are in, hear me. It is not too late to set it down. It is not too late to be known. It is not too late for the color to come back into things you thought had gone gray for good. You have spent so much of your life being the one who is fine. You are allowed, now, to be the one who is real. Thank you for being here with me today and for staying to the end, because I know this one was not easy to sit with. If it reached something in you, do not rush past it. Sit with it a moment before you get up. And if it made you think of someone, that friend, that parent, that quiet, strong one who is always fine, reach out to them this week. Ask the real question. You might turn out to be the one safe person who finally slips past the mask. And take care of yourself. Truly. Not the performance of it. The real thing. I will see you in the next one.